Oh, let's go away from that. So this is on right now, but if I click this, I'm going to mute it.
Mhm. decided will definitely be another cooking dojo. We'll tackle another one of those, which should be fun. So please, do you remember how these things go in the past? Join, ready to collaborate and learn. You don't have to come with any knowledge of how to code or how to be a software developer, as long as you are just an enthusiast, just interested in this process and want to learn, then that is totally good enough. The one main thing about WebGeeks is we try to create and foster an environment where it's completely okay to fail or not complete the task or to not get it done. Like, it doesn't matter here. It's more about the journey, it's more about the community, and it's we're here to learn. So anyway, that'll be next month. In addition to that, to find out information, you can hit us up on LinkedIn, or which is probably the primary place to go to. I don't think anybody goes to Twitter anymore, although we still do post it. And then we have a sessionized site, which you can sign up for a talk if you'd like to give one. We're still looking for speakers, for July and ongoing months, and we would love to have you. We can easily do a fast lightning talk or a larger talk that is around 40 minutes or within that neighborhood. And we can do multiple talks in one night, or we can do a short talk mixed with a long talk, whatever makes sense. Or if you are not accustomed to speaking and that's not really your bag, let us know about something that you are interested in, and we can try our best and craft an event around it. Beyond that, I wonder, Ben, if there's anything you'd like to throw out about any upcoming events, and also Source Allies, the space.
Sure. Hi, welcome everybody. My name's Ben. I work here at Source Allies, and we're really happy to have you and host you here. We bought some pizza for you, so grab as much as you'd like. Back in that electrical room, there's a fridge. You can grab any drink, adult or otherwise. Need a restroom, those are up those stairs, and take a right. And then on that whiteboard is our Wi-Fi guest if you need to use your computer or phone. Just want to thank you for being here. Happy to connect with you after. As far as other events like the Tech DSM party we're planning, we did one last year. We're well on our way to planning 2025's version. It's going to be at the River Center again, free for anyone in Tech or plus Tech. Free apps, free open bar, live music. The point of it is just to reconnect with people in the tech community here in Des Moines and celebrate us. There's no speakers, there's an agenda. It's just connecting with the tech community. So we'll be sharing out more about that for us on LinkedIn and Facebook and X and all that. But yeah, hope you enjoy our presentation.
Awesome. Sorry, I wasn't using the microphone before. I'll start using it now. Last couple points I want to make. One, this event is being streamed on Twitch, twitch.com/DSM And I will, and I have been getting in the habit of this, I will immediately after this event post it then on YouTube, so you can find your talk there. And the only other thing I'd say is, hit us up. Let us know if there's ever any other way you'd like to get involved with WebGeeks and kind of help us out or, help grow the community. Cool. And then with that, Adrian, I will hand it off to our speaker tonight.
Thank you very much. Is the mic on? Can you guys hear me? We're doing good? All right. So, mic check done. All right. Hi, my name is Adrian. I've been coming to WebGeeks for, I think, off and on for a few years now, but pretty consistently for like the last 6 months. Thank you all for kind of giving me a chance to talk about this project that has been a big part of my life for a long, ridiculously long time. So the title of the talk is Mocking to Making. And I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a background about myself. I actually started making websites in 2004, and that was back in the Flash days where everything was Flash, and it was this kind of fun, involved, entertaining kind of medium that we got to play in. I went and got a graphic design degree after that, kind of inspired by my experience building websites. And I didn't really plan on going back into web design, but I kind of got pushed back into there. And that kind of started me on a journey into kind of UI and UX and kind of starting to understand the nuance of visual design in the web medium. But I kind of always found myself gravitating back towards making things. And for a few years, I was able to make things in Flash because it was still a viable way of doing that. But kind of while we were in the middle of that transition, there was a big shift that was happening in the world. In 2007, the iPhone was released, and the whole world became about mobile experience. Pretty much, it felt like overnight. I know it took longer than that, but that's what it felt like. And then in 2010, Steve Jobs single-handedly killed Flash. And I think a lot of us, missed the funeral, but it was a sad day. And after that, the web became HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And obviously paraphrasing, there's lots of other things that go into it, but if you're talking about front-end technologies, it's those three primarily. But it felt like something kind of got lost in that transition, because when you're working with Flash, it had timelines, it had animation, it had all these things that was kind of baked in at the very core. And when we went to that, every website was kind of an experience. And when we went to that, everything became Bootstrap for a long time. And that's kind of what Jucie came out of. This is my app, and the idea of it is to try to reclaim and kind of put tools into people's hands so they can kind of be visually creative with web technologies again. But it's not to displace the web. It's not trying to create a sandbox that everybody has to play in. The goal, and this is really what Flash did badly, is that they said, hey, everybody, we've built a sandbox and you have to come play in it. You have to play by our rules. You have to use our language. You have to use our framework. You have to use our everything. Jucie has different goals. Jucie's goals are to embrace what you guys are already using, what we are already using to build web technology. Its goal is to embrace the open source and to adapt to developers, to not say, hey, this is how you have to build, but to say, how do you want to build? Let's put a tool in your hand to let you build better. So kind of question is, why am I up here giving this talk? Jucie was built almost exclusively by me. Chris actually has sat with me many, many times as I talked through the idea and pitched things to him and asked him if there's ways of doing things, and even asked him some math questions about vectors and cosines and things for scaling. And he was very kind and did a lot of patient listening to my ramblings. But honestly, you guys are the first people to ever see this in public. And so what I'm looking for is kind of a dialogue. I really do want feedback from you guys and input. Things I could do differently, things that I haven't tried yet, things I haven't thought of. So this is Jucie. Jucie is an acronym. It actually stands for JavaScript Unified Composable Interface Engine. And I want to be really clear that there's a couple things that it's not. It's not a design to code. This is not here's a Figma file and it generates HTML. It's not a code generator, and it's not a visual to code converter. It's not any of those things. Everything you're seeing is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Every single piece of it, everything you're going to see on the screen. This is what it looks like today. This is an app that I was actually building just earlier today. And I'm going to try to kind of do a balance here. I'm just going to try to talk about the technology about it, how I built it, some of the underlying things, but also I just want to kind of demo it for you guys and kind of see what you think. So this is the interface and what Jucie looks like. Jucie is composed of basically 3 distinct parts. What you have is the studio, which is the interface that you're actually interacting with. The center is the stage, and each one of those applications you're working on is actually an iframe that the studio is communicating with. And then it has a worker that I offload a lot of the heavier computational tasks to, including a canvas overlay that provides a lot of visual information about what you're doing. And then everything is stored in IndexedDB. So, and that's part of Jucie's core, is that it's designed to be an offline first design program. So everything that you work on, everything you do, it's actually stored on your computer in IndexedDB first. And then it has a syncing ability to sync to servers elsewhere, and also a peer-to-peer capabilities. I chose this model because it's safe by default. It means that the information that you're working on is on your local machine, that it is not sitting out there in the cloud somewhere. It can't be cracked. It can't be hacked into. It's all sitting there locally to you. Jucie also integrates with other frameworks, React, Vue, Solid.js, Redux, and MobX, just to name a few. And its very core is designed to be extendable. And I'll kind of talk about what that means in a little bit. So here we kind of have two different divergent paths. I'm going to kind of let you guys decide, actually. So these are the three core technologies of Jucie, and I can kind of go in depth into each of them. Or I can demo Jucie for you right now. Demo? Demo? All right. So this is a to-do app that I built this afternoon in Jucie. Please forgive my spelling. Very, very simple. I built a to-do app because anytime you try out React or Vue or anything like that, the first thing they have you build is a to-do app. So I thought that would be a good place to start. So this is what we're trying to get to, and now we're going to build it. And I'm doing the thing that you should never, ever do, which is demo an alpha version of your application live in front of people. So I'm going to do that today because screw it, why not? All right. So all right, blank canvas, blank project. First thing you have to do, we have to pick our screen, what we want. So this is our first page, page 1. Everybody with me so far? And then the first thing we need to build a to-do app is an input. So we're going to drag an input over here. And then we're going to add a button. So again, these are not Figma. This is not Canvas. This is all HTML, CSS, and JavaScript being written in real time in front of you right now. So we've got an input, and let's go ahead and bind that input to some data. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a quick data bind. Is everybody familiar with data binding, two-way data binding in React and Vue and those types of systems? All right, everybody's good? All right. So I'm going to go over here, going to create a new value. I'm going to call it text. And then I'm going to go into the content. Just use mustache templates. And then, just for funsies, just going to preview it. So something cool just showed up in that header. If you go back here, the mustache template, right? All right. So next, we're going to go ahead and set up the events for the input here. So on input, we're going to set the value of text to be whatever you're typing into that input. Everybody kind of familiar with that pattern? Any explanations needed there? We're good? All right. So, oh, no, my first mistake here. On input, now the local scope provides the raw values, and it also provides a really generic function called set value. So we're going to bring in set value. We're going to tell it we want to set it to text. All right. So now on input, it should, fingers crossed here, should set text to whatever we're typing in there, and that should show up. So there we go. All right. So we got a simple two-way data binding working, right? So let's go ahead. To do a to-do, we have to be able to type something in. We have to be able to add it to a list. And this is where it gets complicated, and I'm probably going to fail. So, if I do fail, bear with me. But this is probably, if this is going to mess up, this is where it's going to happen. So in order for this to work, I'm going to bring in a main element right here. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to just add another heading right here. And obviously, I built the system, so I'm pretty familiar with how it works. But I'm going to try to explain it. So if I go too fast or I'm missing something or I'm not clear about what's going on here, please slow me down. I'm happy to kind of explain. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to create a new value called to-dos. We're going to set that to be an array by default. And then we're going to create an action here called add to do. When the values and getters and all those are brought in, they're always brought in as functions. It's part of the reactivity system. I've been exploring ways of abstracting that out so that, let's say, you can have a proxy that calls the functions or other things, so you can kind of manipulate this data differently. But for right now, we're just using it in its pure raw state because it's easier just to do that for right now. So in order to add it to do, again, everything that we're defining up here and the values and getters are brought in here. So we're going to have to-dos, which is brought in a function. We're going to have so all this does is get whatever is in to-dos out and assign it to current to-dos. Everybody with me so far? All right. Then in current to-dos, we're just going to push whatever we have in text here. So we're going to get the text out. And then the way it's set up is that if you call the function with 0 arguments, it just returns a value. If you call the function with an argument, it just sets that value to be whatever that is. So in this case, we're just going to pass text in as to-dos as current to-dos. So basically what we do is we said, go get the array, pull the array out, push the new value in there, and then put it back. Pretty simple cycle. Is everybody pretty clear about that? Any questions? All right, I'll keep going then. So now we've just have the ability to add a new item to our to-do list, but now we have to bind it to something that's repeating. So have this nice little repeat toggle here. This opens up, and all you have to do is set this, which is just a basic for, to whatever you want. So in this case, to-dos. So now the heading is now bound to to-dos, and it'll repeat for each to-do in that array. If we switch back to the preview, make sure, yep. You can see how the heading is present here, but it's gone in the preview because we don't have any to-dos yet. So, and now we have to make sure that all this is set up, what to do. We got the button here, the binding, and we have to add the click event. So on click, and we're just going to straight up call add to do. Everybody clear so far? All right. So if this works, whatever I type into the input should show up in the text. If it doesn't, sorry. So let's see. And it works. All right. So the problem is that everything is absolutely positioned in Jucie by default. And this is so that you can manipulate things, you can move things over the screen. Also because absolutely positioned items are actually faster. When you're talking about rendering CSS actually has an easier time rendering and has faster loading times with absolutely positioned elements because it's not having to do as complicated as repaints. So in order to get multiple to-dos, because I can type things in here, we're going to have to make it an auto-positioned layout in order for it to show up. And I need this text to become whatever that item is. So if you look back here, you can see that I have repeat or 4 to-dos as item key. So whatever the item is, it becomes whatever this field is here. So going back here, so now whatever we push to that array now becomes whatever that value is, or it should. There we go. Make sense? All right. So now the process for making an auto layout in Jucie is very, very complicated. What you have to do is you have to go over here, you have to click on this drop down and switch it to default, and now it's an auto layout. So now we can add multiple to-dos. There we go. All right. So that's the basics of data binding in Jucie, how data works. And its goal is to have parity with systems like React, with Vue, which have loops and things like that built into them, but also to work with them. So I really wish one of my goals for tonight was actually be able to show you how I could bring React and Vue components into this. However, I totally chickened out, and I had a big deploy issue last week that totally ate up my time, and I did not have time to get it. I can tell you that React and Vue components do work in this. I had them working at the beginning of the week last week, but not at the end. So it's coming very soon, and I'm really excited about that feature because not only can you use React and Vue components, but you can actually use them side by side. You can actually nest them inside of each other as well. So I had to do some pretty complicated backflips to make that happen. And bring in libraries like Vuetify and Material UI are just whole projects in and of themselves because of all the specifics about how they have to be configured, ways of adding theming, things like that have to be kind of added into the interface. But that is kind of one of the near-term goals, is to get that working. So that is the basics of Jucie, is essentially drawing web apps in real time, using an interface that is based very much and should be familiar to people who use Figma and Sketch and Illustrator. And so kind of that is kind of the basics of it. So I can go further with the demo, or I can kind of go back and start talking about some of the underlying technologies here. But before I do, does anybody have any questions, comments, things that they're kind of curious about right now that I could answer before we dive back in? Good? All right. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about Jucie and how I built it. And then I can kind of go back and talk a little bit more about the app and do some more demo if that sounds good. So there's 3 core technologies that I had to build in order to make Jucie happen. The first thing I had to build was a path-based state manager. And the reason I had to do this is because React and Vue have moved us basically into a virtual DOM model. Is everybody familiar with the virtual DOM? What that means? Okay. So this is what the virtual DOM looks like to a certain degree under the hood. This is hyperscript. A lot of people who have even worked with this have never seen this before, but is anybody familiar with this? Does this make sense? Okay. So this is how they describe the DOM in the virtual DOM before it is actually passed in to be rendered. So this is what you're seeing. All the code that you write, the view components, they all get compiled into this format, and then they get actually passed into the renderers. But I needed a way to manipulate that directly. I had to be able to reach in, change the data, deeply nested data if I needed to do it very fast, and I needed to do it in a way so that it was fail-safe. So if that path didn't exist, I had to make it at that moment because it couldn't fail. And so this is what I came up with. This is my state manager, and it uses, it's fairly straightforward. The path there, that just describes where you want to put the data, and the value, that is what you're putting there. So the simple example is you can go from an empty object to this in one command. So I know a lot of other state managers use something similar or kind of similar syntax. But I also needed to get data out of it fast. So when we were traversing that path, if we ran into something that didn't exist, I had to be able to fail without throwing a big error. And so it has gets in it to pull data out of. And if it encounters an endpoint that doesn't exist, it just returns undefined rather than throwing an error as you would if you were, let's say, traversing an object. So this is kind of the flow of data, is state manager into a scene graph. Scene graph is what describes kind of a proto virtual DOM. Scene graph to hyperscript, which is what I just showed you. Hyperscript to virtual DOM to actual DOM over and over and over and over again at high speed. So one of the things that I was curious about when I built this was how well it worked. And so because, I wouldn't really consider myself a coder or a programmer because, my degree is in graphic design. And so I had an AI put together a performance test for me that measured this against 3 other state managers, Redux, Zustand, and Mockups. And so I used that as a benchmark as I was working on this to understand how well I was doing, where there was potential areas for improvement, if I had a particular area that wasn't performing well. And so I ran this yesterday, and this is what it looks like. The y-axis is milliseconds. That means that the shorter the bar, the better. Jucie is in blue. Redux is in red. Mockups is in green. And Zustand is in yellow. So not too bad for a guy with a degree in graphic design, I feel like. The top left chart is my favorite. But yeah, so it turned out pretty well, and I'm pretty pleased with the result. So it's great to have data and to manipulate data, but unless you can know when that's happening and where it's happening and get the data out, it's not very helpful. And so I had to add reactivity to my system. So this is what my state manager looks like. And I had to be able to know when things were changing inside the state. So I created what I call reactors. I realize I'm stepping all over React's name, but I don't care because it's my thing. I created reactors, and these are very similar to view computed, in that it is aware of the data that is pulled out of the state when these execute. And so it tracks its dependencies. So it knows that if you get foobar out of the state when in that reactor, that if foobar changes, that reactor now is dirty and needs to be recomputed. It caches its value, so that if you call the reactor over and over again, it just returns the cached value. And then it only recomputes if it's marked as dirty and you call the cache value again. And then it also knows about its dependence. So if you use a reactor inside of another reactor, it knows about that, and it will actually create dependency chains and update everything attached to it. So from building that, I also got a couple of new things. Reactive values, which is kind of what you saw me working with there, which you just set values and get values out. Subscribers and effects, you can subscribe to reactors, and when their dependencies change, they will update their subscribers. And then surfaces. Surfaces are basically composables that are based on reactors and state and contain actions. So these are kind of all the technologies that I was working with and built with, and this is what basically powers Jucie. And finally, the Jucie engine itself. So this was something that kind of came out of working with states and reactors and needing to have those pieces of technologies, but with additional things tacked onto them. So I needed a server-side instance of state and reactors, but I also need additional actions and capabilities tacked onto that for that particular use case. Same thing with the studio and with the stage. Those are all running instances of the engine. And the engine doesn't really do anything by itself. The whole point of the engine is to create a pattern for installing extensions. So this is the basics of an engine. You create the engine, you install an extension, in this case foo. The extension installs new actions onto the engine. And then inside the engine, or inside the extension, it passes the engine. And then it also calls the action, and it also can handle middleware as well. So this is what the stage renderer looks like. So I built each one of these extensions. They all communicate with each other. They all talk to each other. They all pull from the same state. And this is what actually renders Jucie. So the app that you're watching, this is the technology stack that renders it. You can configure them on installation. So you can have an engine that is configured differently for different instances. They can actually list each other as dependencies. And they define actions and middleware that is installed onto the root engine. So this gave me the flexibility of building these out. And so far, I've built 30 of them. And they each serve a very specific purpose. You can see that I have in here a socket IO server. I also have a signal server for setting up WebRTC, storage servers for managing S3, IndexedDB, Minio, and several other technology stacks. And the reason I did it this way is because I want other people to write extensions. I want people to write things that can be plugged into the core Jucie renderer and into its architecture and be able to extend and build on what I've built. So you kind of saw what I have today, what's coming next, peer-to-peer. So basically syncing to IndexedDB storage in real time over WebRTC, React, Solid, JS, and native Jucie components. Material UI, Beautify, libraries available inside Jucie to build with. Bootstrap and Tailwind, I'm working on including both of those as visual or as CSS libraries. Cloud storage through S3, Firebase, Minio, etc. And then private and seekable organizations. And you guys remember how I said that everything is stored in IndexedDB? The reason I picked that was because IndexedDB is stored on a per domain basis. So in the future, you will be able to have a private domain, a private subdomain, and all of your information will be, even locally, safe on that, because if you deny access to that subdomain, the person can no longer access that data. So that's what's coming next. Thank you very much. Um, this was Juicy. This has been many years of my life. If you would like to try it out, you're welcome to. Just go to juicy.app. You can put in your email and sign up for the alpha. And if you want to take the QR code, it just takes you there. Also, I'm part of a group called the Indie App Makers. It's a Discord, and it's just people like me who like to make things. Juicy is the 5th app that I've built and launched myself. There's several other people on there who just like to make things. And so we are created a group to share information, possibly do events in the future or stuff like that, but just be able to give feedback, ask questions, things like that. So if anybody else is interested, you're more than welcome. It's very, very low pressure. And yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Any questions? I know the last part was kind of a data dump there, but. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about like, yeah, okay. You're talking about like the flowing from like page to page to page to page and like having the layout set up. Okay. 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 I'd never thought about that, but I definitely make a note of it. And think about how I could. No. Fine. Go.
Even if you build it, does it run on Juicy.app or does it run on other, I mean, it's HTML, CSS, or do I build on hosting platform?
So the idea, and one of the things that I'm working on right now is it does not run on Juicy.app. The idea is that it becomes your own thing. It becomes a file that you can basically say, yeah, here's the Juicy file. And then for coders, so this structure right here, is anybody familiar with composables in Vue or Pina or anything like that? Everybody's kind of. So this structure right here, values, getters, and actions, this is available in code. You can just write this yourself. This doesn't have to be inside Juicy. This is actually, I wrote it first as just code that you would write yourself and execute. So the idea of Juicy is that it actually bridges the gap between visual design and code, and that the coder can write the code, populate the data layer, and then Juicy picks it up. And so I actually forgot to put it in there, but one of the things I'm working on is a VS Code plugin that will let a coder write code in real time and then be able to see what that code looks like with the interface that someone else is designing at the same time. So, because basically what you're essentially writing is this structure here, values, getters, and actions, and whatever is populating that data into that data layer, Juicy picks up and makes available for the designer or whoever is working with the interface to hook up. Yeah. A little bit, little tiny bit. Mm-hmm. You're talking about like click and drag to like link something to an action? No, I actually hadn't thought about that. That's a great idea. I really love that. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Cool. Anybody else? Any other suggestions, questions? I have a few. Get it, the basic ones, copy paste, that kind of thing. I'm working on adding more. It's one of those things though that is kind of such gold plating at this point that there's kind of a laundry list of other things I'm working on adding right now before I get to hotkeys. But you know, uh, mostly what I've been working on right now is things like uh, shift drag to constrain option drag to make it uniform, those types of commands. So those all exist in the system, but hotkeys, I don't have very many set up yet. Cool.
Capabilities grid in terms of CSS. So on those two elements down at the bottom, maybe you can just like play with show us like positioning.
Yep. Yeah, of course. All right. So everybody here is familiar with CSS to a certain degree. This is just a visual CSS writing tool, essentially. So if you want to lock something to the bottom left, you just click on the bottom left corner and it calculates the new position relative to the bottom left corner. So now that's bottom left. Click here, now that's bottom right. If you want to make things positioned so that they're relative to either edge, you have to set the width to auto. That one disappeared. I'll bring in a new one. So set this one there, set the width to auto. And now you can see that the input box now spans the whole width and is locked to either edge. Yeah.
Right there just made me think of, have you implemented undo?
Yes. So it's not hooked up right now. It was one of the things that got kind of canned when I ran into the server issues last week. But yeah, Jucie has essentially a CRDT conflict resolution system built into it, actually into the state. And so conflicts and changes like that are resolved on a state level, and then it also has history built into it. So you can save up to 1,000 states of history and undo, redo. It also has batching in there. So if you're like dragging something across, you don't have to undo every single instance of drag. It combines different kind of actions into groups. Not yet. One of those things I actually had working last year, but got kind of lost in the shuffle in one of the rewrites. So yeah.
Flexbox container. Okay.
Yeah. If you look here at the auto layout, you actually have default, which is just makes everything kind of default layout, and then you have flex and grid. If you set it to flex, you get all the different different flex goodies that are available to you. Good question, actually. So I thought I might have to do that, which was going to be might have been the end of Jucie if I had to go through and figure that out. I found some really great NPM libraries that actually list it out. So you can pass in a div, you can pass in a button. That's actually how different things like the events here, the events are actually populated based on what is available for that particular type of element. So found some really great libraries out there that are really simple, and they just output like, here is what is available for this specific element type. So.
Yeah, I can see that being really important for accessibility.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too that I mean, you can kind of see here, like for the input type, like you have all the kind of different ones available. Also things like you can't put the same element on it twice, so like filtering out what's already been put on there, things like that. I don't think I have ARIA labels in there quite yet, but it would be a pretty easy thing to add, just expanding that, adding that list, or adding them onto that list. Sorry, I am probably totally blanking. Where specifically?
Yeah.
Oh, these. That is the HTML you're drawing. So kind of like Figma, where you can drag things around and move them around inside of and like change position and things like that. That's what that's what the layers are. So you can see here that you have your page as a base, and then you have buttons, H1 main, H1 input. So it's all the different kind of HTML elements that you've drawn onto the canvas at that point. Anybody else? Yeah. Hi. I discovered, and maybe this is just me being a bad programmer, but because I'm designing a visual tool, the testing really comes down to, does this work? And so building this was make a change, boot up, look at the interface, play with it. Make a change, look at the interface, play with it. And also because a lot of times things are really buried, really deep. I built a state machine to manage mouse events. And so it's a really complicated thing that based on certain criteria, you send that mouse into a certain state, and based on that state, it has other states available to it, et cetera. And just that by itself, like trying to work through the states and events triggering at the wrong times, like the difference between having a mouse down and a mouse up in the order or in the state, or a mouse or a click event in the state, wasn't something I could test. It was something that I had to just play with all the time, because over and over again I discovered like there's something funky here, and it wouldn't be and the data would probably be fine. Like if I ran a test, it would probably come back and say like, oh yeah, this is fine. But really for me in building this and kind of architecting it out, it was really about like do something and play with it, do something and play with it. So,
like top-tier work for testing.
You very well might be. And honestly, that might be a someday thing.
Have you used it before?
I have a weird story about Puppeteer. I actually built a server-side renderer that would actually render the HTML into images and then stream that back to Jucie. That was one of the early iterations, was actually streaming live rendered HTML from a Puppeteer instance on a server. And it was pretty cool, but you ran into a pretty quickly, basically speed of light delay. Like just the lag was too much. The drag events were slow, and some other things just didn't quite work out well enough. And then there was also a performance issue that I ran into. But yeah, that was iteration 3, I think, was a Puppeteer instance.
I was asking about the website that's out for live.
No, I haven't done that yet. I was thinking about doing that for taking screenshots. So like stream it to there, take a screenshot of it, and then stream it back. But kind of debating about doing that versus trying to just render something in the browser.
Things absolutely positioned by default. Do screen readers like suffer from that, or screen readers look accessible?
From what I understand, especially because absolute is such a CSS 1.0 kind of thing, they don't really struggle with it. I haven't tested it, and I haven't really done a lot of research, but I worked with an AI. I actually worked with 2-3 different AIs on this for over last year, and that did come up at a different point, and they said that the absolute position should be okay. Yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to see that. All right. Anybody else? All right. Thank you. And thank you very much for the feedback. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, sign up. Evidently. Yeah, that's awesome. Be able to test that thing out and provide feedback. And thank you all for coming out tonight. Hope to see you next month. And thanks, y'all. And grab some pizza as well. I think there's a little bit left. Thank you.